Today, this could get you killed. Hitchhiking is about trusting a stranger to take us somewhere. They ultimately decide where to bring us, and there's not much we can do once we're in their car. And this act of incredible trust used to be a normal way of getting around, but not so much anymore, after experiences like the ones you're about to hear. This week, Mr. Nightmare joins me in examining some of history's most horrific hitchhiking murders.
I saw that. I saw that one. I did. I loved it. Not really, because it's kind of creepy, but it was very, very entertaining to watch. But I did check it out. I'm looking at yours. Oh, what the fuck is this? Let's go. Eyeball. Seriously. Rob Dyke. Did I say that right? I hope I did. They call me Eric. Well, they call me Gattor.
There are some strangers who have your best interests at heart, but then there are those who are just a little too nice. And it's telling the difference between the well-meaning and the ill-intentioned that could save your life. Unfortunately, for a teen couple in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the stranger they encountered had unimaginable horrors in store for them. On July 14th, 1973, 16-year-old Mark Matson was hitchhiking with his 15-year-old girlfriend, Mary Ellen Jones. They were job hunting and had been walking for quite a while when a middle-aged man in a white pickup truck pulled up beside them. He introduced himself as Eric and offered the teens a ride, and coincidentally, jobs as his housekeepers. Thinking fate had brought them to the right stranger, Mary and Mark eagerly agreed and got into the truck. Eric then drove them to his house. Only once they were inside, their savior became their captor. He forced the teens into a room at gunpoint, a room straight out of a psychedelic horror movie. Black light illuminated obscene neon drawings, and words splashed across the concrete walls. Chains littered the room, and escape was unlikely, as the door was made of steel and padded heavily with soundproofing so no one would hear their cries for help. Over the next several hours, Eric ordered Mary and Mark to perform sexual acts on one another while he took pictures with one hand and held a gun in the other. And when—
What the fuck? So, he's a creep / pedo and a murderer? That's weird. Wow. Really? So,
Mark saw an opportunity, he attempted to force the gun from Eric's hand, only to be shot 3 times and killed. Mary, devastated and now alone with her captor, watched in horror as Eric cut off Mark's hands and feet, then his head, before burying him under a layer of concrete in an adjacent shower stall. Well, the nightmare wasn't over yet for Mary. Over the next 22 hours, Eric sexually assaulted and beat her repeatedly. Then, unexpectedly, he suddenly let her go, threatening her to keep quiet. But Mary had no such intention.
I wouldn't let a motherfucker try to do that shit to me. I guarantee you I'm going to tell the first person I see. Trust me on this. No. How the fuck? You're a dumbass. You really are. How are you going to do that to somebody, let them go, and expect them not to say shit? The fuck? You're tripping.
She found her way to the Fort Lauderdale police station, where she recounted the entire 48 hours of hell to the police. However, when police learned from Mary's mother that the teenager was a pathological liar, they questioned the legitimacy of her tale and investigated no further. It wasn't until 5 days later they realized Mary had been telling the truth.
No shit!
Police were called to the house of Albert Brust in Miami after a neighbor witnessed Albert sit completely motionless outside during a thunderstorm. Authorities found Albert dead in his lawn chair. He had purposefully ingested chocolate milk laced with cyanide, killing himself. But it was what authorities found inside the house that shocked them most of all.
Which was?
A torture room, described exactly as Mary had recalled it, and the body of Mark Matson buried under 3.5 feet of concrete.
That's a whole
look into Albert Brust's past showed he was no stranger to a life of crime. He was previously convicted of kidnapping, robbery, and assault in New York before being released and moving to Florida for a new start. However, as documented in his journal, he was fighting a constant urge to kill himself and attempted to redirect his feelings of violence on others. But it seems he still decided taking his own life was the only answer for him.
Pretty sure it was I ain't say shit. Orange sock.
It was a bitterly cold night in the town of Breckenridge, Colorado on January 6th, 1982. Temperatures plummeted to the negatives, but 29-year-old Bobby Jo Oberholzer kept warm inside the village pub, celebrating her promotion to office manager at her job. When she'd had enough to drink, she phoned her husband, Jeff, to let him know she was on her way home before departing alone. She headed south out of town with her thumb held out, waiting for a kind soul to offer her a ride out of the frigid temperatures. 3 hours earlier, 21-year-old Annette Schnee was standing in line at a Breckenridge pharmacy where she picked up a prescription and left to get ready for her 8 p.m. shift at the Flipside bar. It was early enough that she decided to hitchhike her way home, and she headed towards the road along Hoosiers Pass. However, Bobby Jo never arrived back home, and Annette didn't show up for work. By the next morning, Jeff was sick with worry for his wife, feeling like something was terribly wrong. So he set out in search of Bobby Jo. But what he found only added to his anxiety. Along the side of the road, he spotted her blue backpack, and just 15 miles outside of town, he came across his worst nightmare. Bobby Jo lay dead in a snowbank on the side of the road, with 2 gunshot wounds to the chest, her wrists bound with plastic ties.
Damn.
Only one set of footprints circled her body, where Jeff also found his wife's keys, along with an orange sock that did not belong to her. One of Bobby Jo's gloves was also found, covered with her killer's blood. Despite the evidence, police had no new leads until 6 months later after the thaw. On the morning of July 3rd, a young boy ventured down to Sacramento Creek to go fishing, but instead was horrified to find the fully clothed body of Annette Schnee, completely preserved by the freezing mountain waters. Her autopsy confirmed she'd been raped, redressed, and then shot in the back before being left for dead. But what stunned police most of all was the orange sock on Annette's left foot, a match to the one found at Bobby Jo's murder scene. Once investigators connected the 2 cases, they began drawing chilling parallels between Bobby Jo and Annette. Both women had long blonde hair, were the same height at 5 foot 3 inches, weighed 100 pounds, and both had last been seen hitchhiking along the same road on the same night, and later found shot to death with a medium caliber revolver. And both women had one connection. Jeff, Bobby Jo's husband, seemed to be the missing link between the 2 women. His business card was found in Annette's wallet. However, he claimed it was a coincidence. He'd given her a ride months before, given her his card, and hadn't seen or spoken to her since. While investigators found it highly suspicious, Jeff had a rock-solid alibi confirmed by several friends with whom he'd been visiting with that night, and was cleared as a suspect. In the 34 years that have passed, police have had multiple suspects, none of whom could be physically tied to either crime scene the night of the murders. To this day, the case remains unsolved and the killer unidentified, and the small town of Breckenridge is still haunted by the senseless murders.
Damn. Stranger in the house. Oh, fuck no.
Being kind to strangers was important for Thomas Pendergast, an aircraft worker and father of 4 who carried his religion close to his heart. So while driving along the San Diego freeway in November of 1958, the father and good Christian man in him felt a pang upon seeing a homeless teenager hitchhiking along the side of the road. Thomas pulled over and the teen got into his car, but it was a moment that would haunt him just weeks later. The young man was 16-year-old Carl Etter, and while talking in the car, Thomas learned that not only was Carl without transportation, but he also had no job and no place to call home. Feeling pity and a need to care for the misfortunate teenager, Thomas offered Carl safe haven at his home until he could find work at an apartment of his own. Shocked at the kindness, Carl agreed, overwhelmed and grateful for Thomas's generosity. Things went smoothly for over a month while Carl lived at the Pendergast home with Thomas, his wife Lois, and their 4 children, daughters Lois and Diane, and sons Alan and Thomas Jr. So when Thomas arrived home from work on December 12, 1958, he was surprised to find Carl standing in the driveway carrying what little belongings he did own. Carl demanded that Thomas drive him to the San Diego service station, and Thomas, worried about the young man he'd befriended over the last 6 weeks, obliged and dropped him off. But only when he returned home did he realize what Carl had actually been running from. Inside, Thomas found his wife dead on the floor with a single gunshot wound to the head. Frantically worried about his children, he called out for them, only to find their lifeless bodies in the garage.
Oh, shit. That can, man, seeing that shit, like your family, man, like killed, murdered, oh my God, that's gotta suck, man. I feel bad for you, man. Like, God forbid that happens to me, man. Because I plan on one day, no time soon, having some children and a wife and, you know, a dog or two. Because I know damn well Peanut's not going to still be alive when I have my wife and kids. If he is, hey. If he's not, well. But to come home and see that shit, oh my God, that's gonna fuck you up.
All of them bloody messes, all with their throats slashed.
Ooh.
Thomas phoned the police, but by the time they reached the service station, Carl was nowhere to be found. However, 3 days later, he was spotted by an off-duty officer and a lifeguard and taken into custody, where he was questioned about his involvement in the Pendergast family murders. Carl said something in him snapped when 4-year-old Diane wouldn't stop screaming and making too much noise. He cut her with a knife, and when Lois came to her daughter's rescue, Carl retrieved his shotgun and shot Lois once in the head. The ensuing commotion of the children screaming only furthered his violence as he stabbed each child multiple times, so hard that he disemboweled them before slitting their throats. Thomas, devastated, still managed to say that he was praying for Carl, hoping that God would take mercy on him. However, Carl seemed to have little remorse and remarked that he was glad he was captured because it meant he was going somewhere he would have a warm place to sleep and food. He was convicted and sentenced to 2 life terms, but in 1974, Carl decided he'd had enough. He escaped the prison, leaving behind a note reading, "I've done enough time, and I'm leaving." Carl quickly rose to #1 on California's most wanted list with a $20,000 reward for information leading to his capture. Strangely, while there was no sign of Carl, 2 years after his escape, a decomposing body was found on the Pendergast property, chained to 2 cinder blocks. However, it wasn't the body of Carl Etter, as police had suspected, and the identity of the remains are still unknown. Carl would be 73 years old if still alive today, but many authorities believe he was murdered by a biker gang he had ties with. But alive or dead, his whereabouts remain unknown. That's all for this episode, but here's a quick message from Mr. Nightmare.
If you enjoyed this video, feel free to come over to my channel to see the other half of this collaboration.
Which I
3
did.
real hitchhiking horror stories. You can either press on the screen or go to the link in the description below, and I hope to see you there.
Rob, anybody, I'm pretty sure you got this before. Your voice is like so, like, I love your voice, man. And it's like, it's great for this kind of shit. Like, I love that voice. Like, I love Mr. Nightmare's voice. Although, it can be creepy at times, I still nonetheless like y'all voices. I love y'all voices. It just goes right with the video that you're making. But like, what the man? Come on, what? No. Like, I'm a good person, right? You know, I'm a damn good person. There's a chance I might pick up, you know, a couple of people throughout my life. Not all at once. It's gonna be fucked up if you think I'm gonna, you know, pick up like 3 or 4 hitchhikers all in one night. No, especially not see, it's the difference when you pick up somebody during the daytime and you pick up somebody at night. 2 totally different situations. One is broad fucking daylight, bright as a motherfucker, and the other one is it's dark as fuck. But I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna do it as far as picking up a hitchhiker, but the chances of me actually picking up one ever is pretty slim. But I will take into consideration. But I'm not gonna be like, I'm gonna hesitate for a minute before I let you in my car. And I pick up people's vibes very, very fucking fast. So if I feel like you're up to no good, nope, I'm driving the fuck off. I'm sorry, you better walk or find some way to get home. Cause I'm not, no, bitch. Keep, but yeah, man, that's just me. I'm a good person, but to a certain extent. I like helping people to a certain extent. That's it. That's just me. But with all that being said, keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.